We're having a bit of trouble wresting them away from the exhibits. Laura, you can tell us when you think we should go.
Yes.
It's not on, though.
Good evening. My name is Alan Myers, for those of you that don't know me. I've been on the Board of Education for the last 7 years. And tonight I have the pleasure of pinch hitting for Mr. Bloss, who could not be here tonight as our chair, and our vice chair, Mr. Bishop, also could not be here tonight. So the boy from the Bronx is subbing. This has been a very interesting year, to say the least. Talking about pinch hitting reminds me of baseball, and we on the Board of Ed and this town have been thrown some curveballs. Hurricane or Superstorm Sandy, a big snow blizzard, the challenge of Newtown, a neighborhood that is very similar to us. And we responded appropriately. We responded collaboratively, and I see our first selectman here tonight, and because of the wonderful relationship the Board of Education and the town has, we were able to do what is right. The side effect is our kids will be going to school late into June. Some of our buildings are not air conditioned, but they'll survive. We also were thrown some fastballs. The Common Core state standards, we have to rethink, remodel our curriculum. And the state threw a fastball at us, and very fast, called teacher and administrator evaluations. We responded. Board of Education last month approved 2 models for teacher and administrative evaluations, and they will go into effect next year. But because the Board of Education and the town have such a good relationship, that we work together in financial issues, in structural issues, in policing issues, and that enabled us once again to have a budget that met the needs of both us and the town of Guilford, as well as the taxpayer. And once again, it passed by a very large margin, so I'm thrilled. The Board of Education also collaborates with the community. This year, a group of parents of special ed students came to us, and we discussed many programs. We discussed how to build increased capacity in our schools, and I think Dr. Friedman will discuss that later. Likewise, parents came to us talking about their students who are high achievers, and we are again talking about what we can do to meet their needs and to meet their needs effectively, and there will be a workshop next month in which we address this issue again. To me personally, the most exciting thing that's happened in the last couple of years has been, as board members, and I see some of my colleagues here tonight, we have at times become students. We have enjoyed a book club. We have enjoyed learning from our teachers, our administrators. That is exciting because, as Mr. Bloss is fond of saying, we don't get paid. We occasionally get a pizza if we have a dinner meeting. We work very hard, and what we get now is our own intellectual stimulation and education. So I thank the administration for that. And finally, those of you that took the chance to look at the new Guilford High School models and pictures out in the lobby, that has been our #1 achievement in the last, and charge in the last couple of years. We're excited, very excited about this new building, and we look forward to occupancy in what appears to be a relatively short time, and plan to break ground in June. Thank you. So with that as introduction, I would like to turn the podium over to our educational leaders, Dr. Paul Freeman and Dr. Ann Keene. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. I want to start by beginning with a welcome and an introduction, but before I even do that, I'm going to start by telling you how much fun this event is for me. Last year, standing at this podium, I believe I was a little bit nervous, and this year, standing here, I am just completely thrilled and proud to be able to stand in front of you and report on our progress over this past year and talk to you about our plans as we move forward into the future. Before jumping into that, I want to start by saying thank you. I want to say thank you to all of you who took the time to be here this evening and to be part of this. I want to say thank you to all of the students who shared their talent and their time and their effort by putting their works of art on display tonight or putting themselves on display tonight. And I want to start by asking you to join me in thanking our 8th grade chamber program performers. Outside in the foyer this evening, you were entertained by Andrea Boskovic, Charlene Guo, Sam Jelly, Ryan Z, and Edmund Rogers under the direction of Adams school teacher Chris Jones. They're 8th graders, if you can believe that, and would you please join me in appreciating their efforts? I also want to thank all of our partners in educating the children of Guilford who joined us tonight. And as we talk through this report tonight, I want to say it up front, and I want to make sure that we don't lose this theme as we go through the evening. But please know, as we stand in front of you tonight, the school system, talking about our programs and our successes, please know that we recognize, we are acutely aware after this year, that it is this community that educates the children of Guilford. It is not the school system alone. It is not any one person or any one program. It's this community that cares about their students and supports their children. I want to thank the members of the Guilford Fund for Education, Guilford's 375th Committee, the Guilford Public Library, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, Project Graduation, the Guilford High School Building Committee and members of Tai Soo Kim and Associates architectural firm, and the New England Conservation Services for their time being here tonight and joining us in this presentation. So I hope that you enjoyed their information, and if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to thank them as well with me. And I know I started by saying thank you for being here, but I do want to note that in the audience with us tonight, we have representatives of our administrative team from within the schools. I see that we have Mr. Mazza and other town officials who are in the room with us tonight. We have members of our Board of Education. We have parents of students. We have members of the High School Building Committee. Thank you to everyone for the time and effort that you put into the community, for the way that you partner with us, and for spending the next, I hope, 45 minutes or so with us. Thank you for being here tonight. Jumping in then, as we think about the work of the schools, every time that we address the work of the schools, we begin by thinking about our mission. When we make decisions, we think about whether we are making decisions that are centered around the needs of the students in the classroom every single day, or whether we're getting pulled in other directions by the variety of other concerns. Our mission, however, is about providing excellent education in a respectful environment that grows a passion for learning and encourages every single child to achieve everything that they can possibly achieve. The mission is founded in a vision for how we see education in our community, and that's about inviting effort. Our vision of education in this community is that we make the learning so inviting, so engaging, so invigorating that the students can't help but lose themselves in the learning. That is the school system that we see, and that is the school system that we work towards and that we strive to be every single day. From the mission and the vision, which are broad statements, the Board of Education every year identifies a specific set of goals for the specific school year in front of us. This year, the Board of Education adopted 3 simple and clear goals. The first is that we would challenge every child every day in every class. Rigor. That means really cognitively challenging work would be there every day for every child in every class. We also said that we were going to focus this year on aligning our work, our curricula, our instruction, and our assessments with the Common Core state standards. And you will hear us talk about the Common Core state standards tonight. I know that some of you spent an evening with Dr. Keene last night and talked about the Common Core state standards. I want to say from the outset, this is the most exciting advent in education in my career. I honestly believe that the Common Core will move us in a direction that is good for children. I believe it moves us in a direction that Guilford embraced some 6 to 10 years ago. This is not new pedagogy. It's not new philosophy in Guilford. It's simply the right thing to do. We knew it 6 years ago, and now 44 other states are getting on board, which means we can collaborate. We can work with other states. We can borrow from their resources. We can learn from their work. And when we do assess our students, we can look across the country and we can see how Guilford performs with other states across our country. And if we see somebody outstripping our students, we can go there and get their work and bring it to Guilford now, because there's going to be some level of commonality that has never existed in my career in education before. It is exciting work. Our third goal was to continue to provide a physically and emotionally safe and caring environment for our students. And that became incredibly important this year as events unfolded around us. These are our goals as we came into this school year, and everything that we share with you tonight is a reflection of those goals and how we have worked to realize those goals. The story of the year begins with new faces coming to join us in our school system. So as we began the year this year, we had movement. We ended last year with the retirements of 14 committed teachers in the school system. 500 years of committed service we recognized and celebrated at the end of last school year. We have a new teacher class that has come into the school system this year, and we brought in new leadership. I couldn't put up a slide that had all of the new teaching staff that joined us this year, but I do want to take a moment to recognize new members of our district-wide leadership team. Mr. Jason Bowden has joined us in the business office. Jason is the new Assistant Superintendent for Operations. He works with all business and financial ends of our operation. He works with facilities, he works with maintenance, he works with food service. And Mr. Bowden comes to us as an incredibly successful high school principal. His experience is in education and instruction, and as he works on that operations side of this organization for us, he makes sure that our decisions remain grounded in good instruction and good learning. Mrs. Virginia Brown is joining us in the Pupil Services Office. She's our new Director of Special Education. Mrs. Brown is working to help us look at our special education services as a continuum, to look at how we provide service to our Guilford children in Guilford, from pre-K through the age of 21. We had a very exciting Board of Education meeting on Monday night where Mrs. Brown shared her vision and our plan to move forward, and I'll spend some time talking about that a little bit later this evening. Lakes Elementary School is lucky to have Mrs. Jill Hale, who joins them. I see people quietly golf clapping in the front row. Jill joins us as the new principal at Lakes Elementary School, a school that had a principal, Mr. Mike Biddle, for a long, long time. Jill is filling big shoes, and she's coming into a school that is powerful and engaged, and she's doing wonderful things with the community at Lakes Elementary School. Maria Carreri has joined us this year as our K-12 math specialist. She's working with our math curriculum throughout the school system, from our very youngest students to our oldest, most advanced students in mathematics. Maria also presented on Monday evening to the Board of Education. It was a long meeting, and we talked about the math curriculum, specifically how our local math curriculum needs to shift in certain areas to meet the expectations and the challenges of the Common Core state standards. It was one of the most exciting instructional presentations that I have seen in a long, long time. We're looking at mathematics as conceptual understanding. We're looking to really drive our students to think like mathematicians, to solve problems as mathematicians, and to understand math in a way that they can't forget. I memorized a lot of algorithms and formulas in my own math experience, and I have forgotten nearly all of them. We want to ensure that our students understand the math that they're doing so that they are incapable of forgetting the way to solve those problems. And finally, Mr. Tim Cipriano, Chef Tim, has joined us in our new food service director. A few weeks back, Chef Tim and I had a community conversation where we spoke about the food program in the Guilford Public Schools. In addition to striving every day to improve the educational components of our program, we're looking to make the lunch program better as well. We want healthier lunches, we want more appealing lunches, we want your students wanting to come to school to eat well and to learn about the food that they're eating. So with our new team, we launched into a school year this year. And the year almost began from the start with a series of unplanned things that we needed to respond to. This presentation isn't strictly chronological, but I want to start with acknowledging the tragedy that took place in Newtown on December 14th. In fact, on the morning of December 14th, our leadership team was meeting at Lathrop House. We sat down at 9 in the morning and we began rolling up our sleeves and wading into rich instructional work together. We were talking about instructional conversations and how administrators can go into classrooms and look at instruction, and then how we can help teachers to be better through that. In fact, we were watching video footage of one of our principals debriefing with a teacher so we could critique our colleague and talk about how can we best give feedback to our colleagues. And then my cell phone started ringing, and then people started coming into our room, and we found out that the events at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown were unfolding on that morning. And our meeting broke up early, and instead of sitting with principals, I started working with Mr. Mazza and with Chief Tarabile immediately. And within the hour, we had police presence at all of our schools, and we tried to figure out how we could do about 3 things at once. How we could support our friends and the families in Newtown, how we could ensure that our students were going to be safe through the end of the day and through the end of the next week and over across Christmas break and when they returned, and how we could continue teaching kids and how we can continue a focus on instruction when this just happened. And schooling changed for all of us in the state of Connecticut, if not for all of us in the country. I need to say that the response of Joe Mazza and Tom Tarabile in the community of Guilford was unparalleled. From the moment that things began happening, we had the resources of this community at our disposal to make sure that the buildings were safe and secure, to make sure that we had access to any information that we needed from around the state, and if there was something that we needed to know, they made sure that we knew it. We immediately had police officers who were coming to the school and saying, how do we reopen? When is it going to be the right time to go back to normal? From that time, we have a continued increased relationship, increased communication, and increased presence from the Guilford Police in our schools. They're not at every school all day, every day. But when I go to visit schools, I see police officers moving in and out of our buildings, smiling and talking to your children. When I'm sitting in an office meeting with a teacher or with a principal, I as often as not look up and see somebody walking behind the back of the building wearing a blue uniform. They're in our schools, they're checking on us, but most importantly, they're talking with us. Principals now see police officers every single day, and they can say to them, I've got something special going on at 2 on Friday. Can you be here then? And these officers are responding to that. And I'm hearing from the officers that they're enjoying it as much as the teachers are appreciating having them there. I get an email every Friday afternoon from Lieutenant Jack Dunn, who tells me what's been going on in our schools and who he's spoken to and who his officers have communicated through the week. We've reviewed all of our safety and security policies. We've drilled our lockdown procedures. We've talked with your children about what to do if something unsafe begins happening in our schools. But most importantly, we've reminded them that we're here for them, that there are adults in the schools that they can and should talk to, that they can tell us when something makes them uncomfortable or uneasy, and we can respond to those things. In the budget that this community supported on April 9th, you voted $250,000 to go into safety and security upgrades in our schools. The new high school plans that you saw tonight were reviewed with a fresh eye in the second or third week of December to look at them again and be sure that we were doing things right. I stand here tonight and I can tell you without hesitation that this is a safe community for your students. This is a healthy place for them to be. This is a supportive place for them to be. And I believe with every fiber in my being that this is a safe place for your children to be. I want the community to understand that, and I want the community to also understand that they're schools. They are happy places. They are full of learning. They're full of joy. They're full of laughter. I hope they're full of you. We encourage all of you to join us in our schools. It may take a little bit longer to come in the front door. We appreciate your patience. We appreciate, even if you volunteer 3 days a week, if somebody asks you who you are and why you're here, we appreciate that patience, but we want you to know that you're welcome. We encourage you to be in the schools with us. You are an important part of what we do in the schools every single day. And responding to all of that was an important part of our work this year. It wasn't work that we had planned for, but it was work that we knew was important, and we know that we're a stronger community for it. It's not as important as Newtown, but we also experienced some weather this year. We kicked the year off with a hurricane again. We had another October snowstorm. We had a blizzard that was almost unprecedented. And again, I need to thank the community for their response. Once again, in each of those events, the school system was recognized as a partner in this community. When the Emergency Operations Center opened up to begin preparing this community for Superstorm Sandy, the schools had a seat at the table. Every time there was a conference call, whether it was with FEMA, whether it was with the governor, I was invited to be part of that phone call, to sit at the table and make sure that school questions got answered and that the organizations that supported us knew that the schools were an important part of this community as well. There was one conference call with the president, and that was the one that I missed. I didn't get to speak to the president in the one phone call that I did miss. The community reached out to the schools, and it happened again with the blizzard. It happened again with the October snow. Each time we were thrown a curveball, the community knew that they wanted us to be at the plate. I've worked in other systems, I've worked in other towns, and I can't say enough how much that's appreciated, and we make better decisions when we collaborate at those levels. I know that we will be in school until June 26th. We had to adjust our calendar this year. We took away days that were planned professional development days for staff members. We brought kids in on a presidential election day to do the best that we could. We also protected April vacation because in the second half of the school year, April was the only full week that families had to be away from school, that staff members had to recharge their batteries. So we made a decision not to shorten April vacation. Staff members will be in school all the way until June 28th, making up the lost professional development opportunities. Again, I appreciate the community and the cooperation that came forward as we made decisions about the calendar. They weren't easy decisions to be made. None of us are particularly excited about school on June 26th. We're hoping it's cool. But it was a response that we made collaboratively. We hope that we listened to the feedback from the community, and we believe that we moved forward well. And then, around all of that, was the work that we had planned to do this year, the work that we were excited to come to school to engage in. The work that we had planned for the year included some significant initiatives that we rolled up our sleeves that we tackled with vigor. And the first is the continued rollout of the Common Core state standards. We have continued to learn about these new standards as a community. We have brought sample items from the Common Core state standards to Board of Education meetings and asked our board members to wrestle with items that we know our students will see on the new standardized assessments. On the opening day of school, with all of our staff members assembled, we had top secret black envelopes on every table, and in groups that mixed teachers from different levels, from different schools, every table had an elementary teacher as well as high school representatives from all the different disciplines. We looked at 10 different sample items and the types of things that we are going to be asking your kids to do on a regular basis moving forward. And we said to ourselves as a community, this is where we're going. We knew that we were going in this direction. We didn't know quite how quickly and how thoroughly we were going to have to respond to get there. So we have been working on that through this school year. We have continued to roll out sample units for teachers so that when we talk about what is a truly worthy, challenging text, when we talk about what are truly worthy, rich, engaging instructional activities, we are all speaking in the same language. So across the district, we've rolled out sample units where every fourth grade teacher in the district is working on know what the same exemplar looks like, and we all know in what direction we're planning our instruction moving forward. Again, I'll say to you, I think the Common Core State Standards is the best thing and the most exciting thing that's happened in this job in my career, and I'm thrilled to be here in this community and in this position as we move forward with this work. Dr. Keene's going to tell you a little more in depth about the Common Core in just a few minutes. We've also addressed new evaluation expectations that have been rolled out to us from the state. And in that case, we have worked very hard to make sure that we're meeting the expectations that the state has set out for us, and at the same time maintaining the expectations and the high quality for instruction and the values and the pedagogy that we've had in Guilford for years now. So we brought together a representative community committee of teachers, board members, administrators. We worked with other neighboring districts. We worked with the State Department. We worked with experts from around the country and looked at how we could build an evaluation system that would meet the state requirements, but would also always be formative and always be developmental and help teachers every day grow in their profession. That was a big chunk of work that we tackled this year. And our focus continued to be on professional development. We know that we will grow as a school district if we invest good, rich learning opportunities in our teachers. So we continued to invest time and resources into professional development. The professional development was for the work that we're doing with the Common Core. It was for the work that we're doing around evaluation, but it was about learning. Everything that we do as we look to grow ourselves as a staff is about understanding learning better and figuring out better ways to instruct so that we can better facilitate and leverage the learning that happens in your children in our classrooms every single day. We also have been talking in our community about pupil services, about special education for a couple of years now. And we also tackled this year the need to provide a more thorough continuum of services for our Guilford children in our Guilford schools. We looked at making sure that we were flexible enough and that we had a continuum of services from pre-K through 21 years old so that fewer of our Guilford students had to go elsewhere to receive their education. Keeping our kids in Guilford is the right thing to do. It's better for our kids. It's better for our families. Fact is, our teachers do it better than any of the other more specialized schools that they could go to. It's the right thing to do to keep our kids home and in the community and meet their needs. We can write checks in the form of tuition payments and send our resources out of the community, or we can invest those dollars locally in our own staff and our own schools and keep those students and those resources here at home. Monday night at the Board of Education, Mrs. Brown presented the plans for next year, where we will be rolling out new support services in areas that we have not had them. This year we have rolled out supports for students at the youngest elementary grades who may have needs that fall on or along the autism spectrum, and we're meeting the needs of those students here at home this year. That's a program that we have to continue to grow because our students age. And we can't keep that program at the elementary level only. It's going to need to begin to grow into Baldwin and Adams and through our middle level. We're also looking at our high school students, students who may have therapeutic, emotional, behavioral challenges, and making sure that we've got options at the high school level, both during the school day by having therapeutic supports in place, and in alternative settings. We're going to be opening an evening school, a high school that meets until 5 in the evening and doesn't start until much later in the day for only a small group of students, but for a group of students who need something just a little bit different than what we're offering now. We're looking at providing this continuum of services right up to and through the age of 21. In fact, a program that we're doing in collaboration with Madison and Clinton. And the only reason Mrs. Brown isn't here tonight is because she's meeting with the directors from Madison and Clinton and the group of parents from our 3 communities whose students will be supported in this program next year. These are all areas where right now, currently, we've got Guilford kids who are having those needs met somewhere other than Guilford. And next year, we intend to have those students back and meet their needs here. Right now, that's an investment in our own town. Long range, that's going to be an investment that pays dividends, because if we can have those capacities here, not only is it going to be better for the kids, but it's going to be better for our bottom line, because we can do it more efficiently if we're not driving students an hour left and an hour right all over the state, but we're keeping them here and meeting them here at home. That was a big piece of the planned work that we tackled this year. And again, Monday was a really exciting, if late, Board of Education meeting. The work that we do, both planned and unplanned, is supported by the budget. The work that we do would not happen if it weren't for the support of this community. In the beginning of the meeting, we talked about the support broadly, the emotional support, the volunteerism, the involvement of the whole community in all that we do. But we also mean very specifically the financial support. This community knows that education done right is an investment, and this community has supported us as we've come through and asked for you to step up and make these programs possible. This year, our budget was built upon a few really simple priorities: to continue to have a safe environment, to focus on instruction and providing professional development for teachers in the areas of instruction, and most specifically this year, in that alignment with the Common Core state standards, to enhance transition services and to look for ways to better meet the needs of more of our students here at home in our Guilford schools, and finally, and to me this is a very important bullet, to be innovative in how we use resources. The things that we're changing in Guilford, we're not trying to say are new additions. We're trying to look at what we do in the system, recognize what we do well and protect it and build upon it, and recognize areas that we can improve on and be creative and use the resources at the table already, maybe in different ways. So there have been shifts, and there have been moves, and there have been positions that have been reorganized, and there will be more, because we know that we don't have a limited resource. We do have a limited resource, and we need to be very creative in how we use that resource. And so in numbers, this is what it looks like. This year, this community supported a request for $54 million to run our school system next year. It was an increase of 2.9% over what we have currently. And if you look at our history, we seem to be bouncing back from the crash, but we haven't made it all the way back to where we were in 2007 and 2008. And I don't know if we'll ever make it back to those levels, but I know that this community steps up and supports the schools when the Board of Education puts out a reasonable and, in fact, I think really exciting request. For that, what I would describe as a modest increase, we have a budget that will move us forward as we move into next year. It will support the initiatives that we have on the table, and it will allow us to continue to innovate, to continue, I believe, to outstrip the competition as we educate your children. We've said over and over again, this is not a status quo budget when we put this forward this year, and I'm proud of the budget support that we received from the community. The budget is built primarily on 2 big considerations: our enrollment. Our enrollment has been declining over the past 4 years. I know those red columns are a little hard to see, but it shows that since school year 8-9, our enrollment has declined by 208 students. That's a decline that we need to recognize and we need to respond to. We also have to put it in perspective and remember that 208 students are spread over 7 different schools and 13 different grade levels. So we know that our numbers are going down, but they're not going down as dramatically as they are in some other communities. In fact, spread across 7 schools and 13 different grade levels, enrollment stays fairly static. We're looking at enrollment. Our staffing has decreased by over 18 positions in the last 6 years. If you look back at the earlier budget slide when you saw that really bad year when everything was very difficult financially, we started reducing positions in the Guilford schools, and we had 5 consecutive years of reducing positions as we moved forward. This year we do in fact increase positions. We have added teaching positions to the budget. On the other hand, we've taken away positions. We've gone up by 5 new positions in our budget proposal this year. but at the same time, we eliminated 3.3 positions. So we're not just adding new resources to the top, we're looking at what we can change and how we can provide things differently, but our staff has grown by 2.7 positions in this budget request this year. To me, that's good news. To me, that recognizes that in the last 6 years, things have gotten more challenging. There are more initiatives on the plate. 6 years ago, we didn't know what the Common Core state standards were. 6 years ago, we had not gone through a year of educational reform in our state. 6 years ago, we didn't know what we were going to be asked to be doing next year. Now we do, and we've put together a staffing plan and a budget that we think will move us forward and that this community supported. And so at this point in the presentation, I want to stop and simply say thank you. We appreciate that support, and we guarantee you that we will make you proud of us next year moving forward. The next part of the presentation is to move on to the results. We've talked about the work, planned and unplanned. We've talked about how we support that work, and now we want to show you the results that comes out of what we put into the system. I want to invite Dr. Keene to come to the podium and talk to you a little bit about instruction and about the student performance that we see in the Guilford schools.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. One indicator of student performance that we use, and then we use several, are our SAT scores. And as you can see, Guilford continues to do well by outperforming the state and the nation in each area. Another indicator, of course, are our advanced placement test. And this one, you can see for the past 5 years, we have the highest percentage of students, of 12th graders, who scored a 3 or better on the advanced placement test. And then we have an indicator from the state of Connecticut, which is the CMT, and the CAPT test, and those are our state tests. And those indicators, and all of this information, by the way, is in your book for tonight. But not only did Guilford students outperform the percent of students meeting goal on the CMT, but they also outperformed our DIRG, and that is our district reference group, a collection of communities of like demographics. So you can see that in our CMT report, and Guilford, this is for the grade 8 results in math, reading, writing, and science, and where students performed. Students in grades K through 8 participate in the CMT. We're just showing you the results of the last year here. And then the same is true with CAPT, where our schools, and I know it's kind of hard to see, there's a yellow bar next to the red bar, but you can see the numbers where Guilford ranks compared to our district reference group and compared to the state in math, reading, writing, and science. So we continue to outperform both of those groups, and we're very, very proud. But that's only because of the dedication, I believe, of the parents, of the administrators, of the teachers, and the staff that work with these students every single day. But Dr. Freeman has mentioned the Common Core state standards several times, and that has been one of my primary responsibilities over the past 2 years. And so I'm sharing with you our 3-year plan. So last year we were really building awareness with staff about the Common Core state standards. This year we have been streamlining our curricula and looking at the instructional shifts, trying some of the units of study, and really focusing on some of the assessment items and what is really going to be expected of us. So it has been a year of learning, a year of trying. Next year will be our implementation year, where we will actually be implementing or beginning to implement the Common Core state standards in a very, very smart way, we believe. This supports our vision of inviting effort that we were already mentioned, instruction that invites effort and supports academic rigor. And one of the ways is with our students really reading more difficult, complex text, really thinking about their the nonfiction, gaining the knowledge in reading, talking about their learning, whether they're talking about mathematics or they're talking about their learning in social studies or in science, but the importance of talk and the importance of writing. So we're looking to really increase the rigor. So just to give you a short example, I want to share with you a peek into a classroom. You're going to see a few minutes, just about 3 minutes, of students really wrestling with a complex subject, and that's the subject of child labor. This is a 4th grade classroom at Melissa Jones Elementary School. And one of the ways that we really want to improve our practice is to video classrooms and to really study ways that we can improve our instruction. So we're going to share students identifying causes of child labor. I want you to listen in onto their dialogue as if they draw evidence from rigorous text and they draw conjectures from that evidence. But notice what the students are doing and what the teacher is doing. This is rigor, we believe. So you can see, and I know it was a little bit difficult to hear, and especially to hear 4th grade voices, but that they were really wrestling and discussing, and the teacher really wasn't intervening a lot, but they were disagreeing, they were going back to the text, they were talking about very sophisticated topics, and they can do this work. Not only are we studying instruction and questioning moves and things that we want students to be doing. But we're also looking at assessments. And this example is actually in your booklet as well. This slide shows a comparison of our current state test on the left, which is a CMT item for grade 7, measuring volume, asking students to compute the volume given the dimensions, the length, the width, and the height, and to show your work. This volume question looks a little bit different. This is one that is aligned to the Common Core state standards. And basically, this one is asking students to draw, construct, and describe a geometrical figure and to solve a real-world problem by designing a sports bag. One of the questions in this item asks students to figure out the shortest length of material to construct this bag using a bolt of material that is 1 yard wide. And that's a real-life problem. And so they also have to be able to describe in words how they found the best possible solution. And there are multiple ways in order to do that. So certainly you can see the difference in the rigor of find the volume and of designing a sports bag. So that is a little bit about the Common Core state standards. We believe we're up for the task. We believe we've been working on this. We've been working on accountable talk. We've been working on academic rigor in a thinking curriculum. We've been working with children's self-management of learning. And it's been something that we've called our principles of learning. And we've been working on those for several years. But the Common Core state standards is now giving us new leverage. And as Dr. Freeman says, we can share across states. And we are constantly getting ideas from other states. We're constantly getting resources from publishers, from higher education that's coming on board as well. And things are not secret. So we're all saying, we're in this together. We're in this together as a country, and we can be globally competitive. And so we believe these standards are better than the standards we had before. We've always had standards, state standards, but we believe these are much improved. And we're really excited to see what happens.
Thank you, Dr. Keene. We also want to point out that we understand that student performance isn't measured only on a standardized test. In the report that we're distributing tonight, there are 4 pages that talks about our student achievements that happen beyond a standardized assessment, that happened oftentimes outside the classroom. And there's a clicker there somewhere. I'm not going to read the 4 pages to you. I don't want to go over all of the accomplishments of our students this year, but I do want to note that we had students who placed second in a statewide robotics competition this year. We had high school musicians who performed at the Kennedy Center in D.C. Just 2 weeks ago on this stage, high school students performed the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and it was fantastic. Our boys cross country were state champs this year. Our girls field hockey were state champ runner-up, and our conference champ girls cross country team performed exceptionally well this year as well. Our students perform not only in the classrooms, but they perform on stages, they perform on athletic fields, they perform in foyers when we're inviting the community in to see what we are all about. On this particular slide, there are 2 photos that I just want to draw a little bit of attention to. In the top right-hand corner, you see the students that you just saw on the videotape, but if you look carefully, you also see a film crew surrounding them. The 3-minute clip that we showed you today is part of a 20-minute segment that was collected by the Institute for Learning, a nationwide professional organization about teaching and learning that is housed in the University of Pittsburgh, and they came to Guilford this year to take what we do in our classrooms and use it to show other school districts across the country how students can learn through talk and how conversation and dialogue in a classroom can be leveraged to be a really deep deep, deep learning tool. So it's not just that we're doing things here that we think are good. We're also gaining recognition for the work that we're doing, and the professional organizations which we have subscribed to in the past are now coming to us and saying, let us borrow your practice and let us take it to other places who can learn from you. On the bottom right-hand corner, I do want to point out, there's a picture of Chef Tim in there with me, and we're serving breakfast at Calvin Lead Elementary School. We know that while students are asked to perform long days in a variety of ways, we need to meet their physical needs as well. And so this year we've introduced a breakfast program at our elementary schools. We know through research that students perform better when they eat a healthy breakfast. And while we know that most students aren't facing financial challenges to having a healthy breakfast in Guilford, some are. Some of our students do wrestle with those financial challenges every day, but most don't. I do know that even families in Guilford struggle with hectic mornings, and getting your kids to eat a breakfast before you send them to our schools is sometimes challenging. But once they've had a chance to wake up and get the bus ride behind them and talk to some friends, their bodies will need that fuel, and we're offering that breakfast in schools. We're also working on improving the desirability and the nutritional quality and the information around our lunches. We do want our kids to understand where food comes from, what healthy food is. We're looking to offer more fresh produce, more locally grown produce. In one of our schools, we're partnering with the Guilford Garden Club to make sure that students see where their food comes from. We know that that's an important part of their education here in our schools as well. And as we begin to wrap up this presentation tonight, I want to begin to close by going back to where we started. Every year, the Guilford Public Schools recognizes a friend of education. This year, for their support with the 2011 storms, we recognized the Town of Guilford Emergency Management Team. We recognized police, fire, and town officials who stepped up and supported us as a school system and worked and partnered with us as a school system in responding to the unexpected weather events of 2011. We're still talking Irene. That's what we recognized them for. And then the year kicked off, and we faced Sandy, and we faced October snow, and we faced the blizzard. And again, we faced Newtown. And we could not have picked a more deserving group of partners to recognize this year than the Guilford Emergency Management Team. Mr. Mazza was there to receive the award on behalf of the town representatives, the town officials, Chief Terabile, the fire representatives, Mr. Hershaft. We know that we have the support of this community, and we know that we have partners in all that we do. And the partners go beyond the town officials. Folks like the folks who were here tonight, the Guilford Fund for Education and everything that they do to raise funds and to support the education that happens in our community. And they make it fun when they do it. The Guilford Youth Mentoring Program. We have over 160 adults who volunteer their time to come into our schools and simply spend time with a kid who needs it. Professionals and adults in this community, who many of whom have already raised their own children, some of whom have kids in the school system, but they come here every week to spend time with a child who just needs to have an adult connection and somebody who's checking in on them. 160, that's an unbelievable number of adults to commit that kind of time to a school system. Guilford Developmental Assets for Youth, a group that works across this community with the schools and in every other area as well to look at ways that we can find more productive and positive outlets for our youth to help them make positive decisions and avoid dangerous or destructive decisions. They work with us in the schools on a regular basis. They host talent shows. They host public conversations. They engender public debate because they want our kids to be successful, safe, and healthy. And the Rotary Club that recognizes student achievement at the high school and repeatedly every year and supports the Interact Club. And the first time that I met with the Rotary Club in this community, a brand new superintendent, having lunch with the Rotarians, and they started talking to me about the principles of learning. They know the instructional values that we embrace in this community, and I've never met a Rotarian elsewhere who can do that. We have wonderful support from our community. And one of the most exciting pieces moving forward, I don't want to miss an opportunity to update the community on the progress of our new high school. We are in bid month At the building committee meeting last night, we were informed that the review of the plans for code compliance by state, by everybody else, is very much complete or very nearly complete, and that we should be releasing the actual construction bids to go out, so we will begin identifying the actual contractors who will come into this community and begin constructing your new Guilford High School. We have a groundbreaking ceremony scheduled for June 6th here just behind the high school that we sit in today. As a matter of fact, next year when we host this event, it'll be the last State of the Schools delivered from this building. We anticipate construction to begin in earnest over the summer. When your students return in September, there will be a full functioning construction site just behind this building, and we remain on track for occupancy as we open the schools in 2015. If you did not get a chance to see the display from the building committee and our architectural firm out in the hall, please know that we will hold on to those materials. The high school building committee has a fantastic website. Please take a look at the work that's being done by that group of volunteer neighbors who come in pretty much still every Tuesday, it seems, to work on this project and move this project forward. And with that, before I open it up for question and answers, I just have one last recognition. I want to ask all of you to please join me in recognizing our communications director, Lori Hahn, who is very much responsible for the report that you have in your hands and for all of the activities that you witnessed out in the hall before coming in and for helping get me ready for this event. So if you'd all join me in thanking Lori. And we've only run slightly over what I promised. We would be happy to answer any questions that you have. We do have a mic set up down here. If I could ask if you'd come forward and use the mic, and I'll make sure I paraphrase the question for the taping that's happening, but we're happy to engage in any conversation that you want to engage in. It's just been Dr. Keene and me talking so far. We'd love to hear another voice. Wow. Thank you very much. Are you going to come up, David? Yep. No, I was thanking you for the question. I wasn't saying good night.
I've missed part of the conversation on the Common Core state standards, and so I have a couple of questions. One was, how are they going to be graded? Because it looks like the questions are appropriately complicated, but that basically query, how do we standardize the evaluation of the answers? That's one question. And the other is how are the effects of the standards being monitored, and how are we deciding that they're hitting their target, missing their target? How are we going to tweak them so that they get closer to the target?
Those are all really good questions. I would say for the first, that the way that we will grade student work, the way that we will assess student work when they're engaging in problems like these, is the way that we do it for some of what we do now. So when students write essays or when students do project work now, students do engage in this kind of work in lots of schools, and particularly in Guilford schools now. So we will be doing more of that level of work. There will be less of, here is an assessment with 100 or 200 questions, and I'm going to judge you by how many of those that you get right. We do still do some of that, and quite honestly, the Connecticut Mastery Test is structured very much in that way. There will be less of that happening, and there will be more of research project, and that's something that we all even remember from our school experience. So we're not doing something we've never done before. We're going to be changing the balance, and we're going to be doing those activities more deeply, more often, and I think more thoroughly. But it is a good question, because you're judging the quality of somebody's thinking. You're judging their ability to solve a problem. Even on the new standardized assessments, the assessment that our students will be engaging in is something called Smarter Balanced. There will be multiple choice sections on that assessment, but they're going to be very different than what we may be used to. Here's a problem. Here are 5 possible answers, and only one is correct. And your job is just to figure out which one of the 5 is correct. So you throw away a couple that you know are crazy, and then you look at the 3 that remain, and you try to make the best choice you can. In many of the items that we will see in the new assessment, they will give you a problem. They will say, here's 4 ways to solve the problem. Which ones are valid? And they don't tell you if it's only 1, 2, 3, or all 4 that are valid solutions. There's no all of the above. You have to check individually each strategy that is a valid way for addressing that problem. So we'll continue to judge students in ways that we have, but more often in ways that are different than a regular sort of traditional exam that we all may remember. More problem solving and less recall activities. How will we measure whether this work is going in the direction that we want? One advantage is that most states are engaged in this sort of work. So right now, when we give our students the Connecticut Mastery Test, we're the only state that gives the Connecticut Mastery Test. There's no way to measure our local performance to anybody outside the borders of Connecticut. We will be able to have a standardized assessment that is more problem-solving in nature, in fact, much more like the international assessments that you hear us often compare our performance to other nations through. And we will be able, over time, to look at Connecticut's performance on a really measurable tool to other states. We will also continue to monitor locally in the way that we always monitor our local performance. We will listen to our teachers in the classrooms. Our administrators will be in the classrooms working with our students. We will continue to have students who take the SAT and go off to college and career, and we will be looking to know that our students are prepared, and in fact more prepared than they are now. And those aren't really empirical measures, but those are really important measures for whether or not we're being successful and moving in the right direction. And we're going to learn as we go. A lot of these answers are not out there for anybody yet. What's exciting in this opportunity is we're not learning alone. We're actually learning with 45 other states this time. There have got to be other questions in the audience. Come on up, Brian. Thank you. Oh, go ahead. You can be right on deck.
I wanted to go back to one of the statements you made with regard to memorization and the formulas.
Yep.
I did the same thing, high school, college, etc. And
Step closer to the mic.
sure, just going back to your statement with regard to memorizing and forgetting everything. I have a 2nd grader, 4th grader, 6th grader. And I memorized trig and all that, algebra, calculus, etc. Don't remember all of it, but I do remember some. And I apply it, whether it's in my profession or out on a hike, whatever it may be. And there are teaching moments and learning moments. And so now as I help my 6th grader with his math homework, you know, and I look at, and it's hard for me to read on page 12, you know, comparing the old way to do geometry with the new. I'll often say to my son, well, let me see your work. And it's somewhat of a foreign concept. It could be just the way he's experiencing things. Mm-hmm. And I say, where's your scratch pad? Foreign concept. And I see the new way of doing things, and there's no room to do any work. And there used to be the old trick, well, maybe you'll get some credit. But it's really not about that. It's about the relationship with the educator. If I do a little bit of work, my son or myself, the educator can see I don't understand the concept, or I just can't get there right, or where I need help. So the showing the work, and I understand the recall, you know, that's a tool to have. And again, I can't read the design of the sports bag and if there's formulas in this and all that other good stuff, but the formulas, the laws of physics, the laws of math, probability, they have not changed and they still apply. Right. So I just request respectfully that hopefully that's still in the schools, and I'll obviously get a sense for that as my son goes into higher grades, but I hopefully they understand that the formulas and memorizing, you know what, it's a tool to have.
Absolutely. And I know that it's small in the report. We didn't want to dedicate a whole page to it. The problem that you see in front of you with the sports bag, we put it on the screen and it's in the report, it's impossible to do that problem without showing your work. You, in fact, have to draw a diagram that shows the bolt of cloth and how you will cut the cloth and form. So there's no room to do it because you have to do it on a separate sheet of paper. You can't solve that problem without putting your thinking writing on paper. It has to be done that way. There is a place for memorization, and there will always be a place for memorization, but the proper place for memorization is on top of conceptual understanding. The reason I forgot those formulas is because I didn't have a firm conceptual understanding underneath them. And I went on and became an English teacher. And you talked about things where you made real-world connections and you were able to actually apply those components because you understood the concepts that were there along with the memorization. When you're out walking in nature and somebody stops and starts pointing out geometric formulas to you, they didn't just memorize the formula, they understand the concept underneath it. The formulas, the algorithms, those will be there, but what we want to do first is we want to have the students first wrestle with the conceptual challenge. They work their way through the challenge. As often as not, they discover the rule or the law or the formula themselves, and then we show them the formula, and then they work. And fluency is not lost. Fluency, the ability to quickly and accurately solve a problem, is something that we still want our kids to have. But if that's divorced from a conceptual understanding, it won't last a lifetime. And there's research that supports that. So absolutely, there's going to be place for that. There's going to be place for that. And we're not taking the formulas away. We're not telling kids you never use long division. We're not telling kids that you never use a calculation once you know what you're doing. But using a calculation before you understand what you're doing may get you the right answer and may keep you going for a while, but it's empty learning. And that's the balance that we're trying to strike as we move forward there. Those are really important questions, and I appreciate the question because I didn't make that clear in my presentation. There was another question.
Learning is obviously an activity that involves at least two parties. Mm-hmm. And clearly our students, our children, are going to be maybe not quite fundamentally challenged, but in that direction by the Common Core State Standards, which are a wonderful thing and the right thing and going to be really, really tough for a few years probably. Delivering all this educational benefit is our teachers, mm-hmm. your staff, the folks who work hard every day and really want to teach, and if anybody'd like to disagree, you're more than welcome, have a broad range of, I feel bad saying it because they all want to be good teachers, have a broad range of abilities as teachers. Now they're presented with an opportunity to teach a whole bunch more to kids who haven't been, in large part, haven't been challenged at this depth before. That's the whole idea. That's why we're changing. Mm-hmm. So is there anything, either at the Guilford level or at the state level or at the national level, that's specifically maybe backroom conversations or structural issues that address the issue and everybody else sees the issue, that the folks who have been reasonably successful as teachers, some of them may blossom and excel and be exceptionally successful with Common Core State Standards. Some of them may not be as well aligned with that sort of teaching, because the teaching, as we've been seeing for a long time, is going to be delivered, it seems, in a different way. So I guess that's my question. Is there anything anywhere that looks at the fact that it seems to take a different skill set to deliver this curriculum?
Yes, it's being addressed, I think, at all three levels, nationally, state, and locally, and I think we're doing it best here in Guilford. When we talk about our focus and our investment in professional development, we mean supporting and resourcing the teachers so that they do get to grow in these areas. So all of our professional development over the last years and continuing forward has been around the instructional shifts. What are the things that we need to do differently? What are the things we need to do more deeply? What are the things we need to do more often than we have been before? And how do we make those shifts, and how do we support teachers in that? The presentation that Mrs. Scarreri made Monday night to the Board of Education, she did in collaboration with teachers, a committee of teachers who worked with her on the new math curriculum rolling forward. Not just what you're expected to do, but sample resources. Taking the resources that we have in district and recataloging them so that you can draw on them quickly and efficiently for the activities that you are doing. The sample units that I talked about. What we saw in the video today was one of those units, where we make sure that we've got one unit that does the sort of things that we're talking about and does it really, really well, and we take every teacher at that grade level through that unit so that we can say this. This is what we're talking about when we say really rich, really engaging activities, so that when Dr. Keene and I are meeting with Mr. Mitchell in his office at Leet School, Mrs. Bishop can't stop 4 students from walking into the office and start talking to us about child labor and the fact that even though the unit's done, they're going to keep working on it, and they're writing letters to the governor and the president because they can't let it go. They were so engaged by the work that they did. The unit's over, but they're still going. And that goes back to the idea of inviting effort, that the learning is so engaging that the kids can't stop themselves from rolling up their sleeves and getting into it. And we've got incredibly talented teachers in the town of Guilford, and they're going to need a lot of support to be able to pull that off, because it's a big ask, it's a heavy lift, and we need to help each and every one of them get better. So we're working with instruction, we're working with curriculum, we're working with our assessments, we're working with teacher evaluation, and making sure that we do it in a way that is respectful and supportive and about development. It's not about gotcha, it's about helping teachers be better every day. Our principal group this year focused on what we called instructional conversations. When you go into a classroom and see a teacher teach, what does the conversation afterwards look like? Because our job isn't just to make sure the buses and the lunches and the bells run right. Our job is to be in there every day challenging every teacher to be better, and that takes work for us. So we have to continue to invest in that professional growth. The idea of instructional coaches in the school system. We have professional developers in the school system, certified teachers, master teachers, and teachers who know how to help other adults grow. And their job is to be in the building every day, working with the teachers on the ground to help each and every one of those teachers be better. It's like a pitching coach. You can go out and you can buy a really expensive, talented pitcher, but you're still going to have a coach who watches and critiques and helps that athlete be better every single day. And our teachers deserve that level of support as well. Yes, we have to invest, we have to monitor, we have to make sure that we're giving them the support, the resources, and the time that they need to move with these instructional shifts. So for a really reluctant group, those were 3 really good questions. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you for what you bring to the Guilford schools every single day. All right. That wasn't bad, right?
Perfect place for that.
Hmm?
Perfect place for that example.